Lockdowns and curfews not on the table, according to the Prime Minister. The police commissioner reveals crime stats over the last year, and New Providence identified as an epicenter for Omicron. Good evening, everyone. I'm Leah Cooper with your JCN News for this Thursday, December 30th. As the country faces a fourth wave of COVID-19, Prime Minister Philip Davis addressed the COVID-19 climate in country at the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing. Here's Laurencia Smith with that report.
Curfews and lockdowns are not on the table as the country moves to mitigate against an increase of cases. These are the words of Prime Minister Philip Davis Thursday at the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing as the country battles a fourth wave of the pandemic.
As I've said, many Bahamians are earning their first steady paychecks in a long time. Many fragile, small Bahamian-owned businesses are just starting to recover. And as a country, we are taking important steps to economic recovery. So blunt instruments like shutting our borders or prolonged nationwide lockdowns are off the table.
Several events have been canceled by health officials, along with officials noting that gatherings should be no more than 20 people indoors and 30 people outdoors. The Prime Minister adds that the government has asked hotels to do their best to protect Bahamian staff.
A lot of Bahamians have asked why the big hotel properties are allowed to have outdoor New Year's Eve events. These questions are more than fair, and indeed, I share the frustrations and concerns. Our health protocols are designed to reduce transmission risk while still supporting economic activity. Often, these twin goals are in contradiction with each other. It's not easy balancing act. It is not an easy balancing act. And you may think we get some of these decisions wrong. But the primary health goal is to slow transmission among Bahamians, to protect our people and to protect our hospitals from the coming onslaught of cases.
With the new variant making its rounds around the world and here in the country, the Prime Minister encourages people that may have symptoms for the flu and cold, or those who know they have been exposed to someone who has COVID, to please get tested. Asked when free testing will be launched here in the capital, the PM says this.
Testing should be starting imminently. We had the pilot program in the Family Islands, and that demonstrated some of the logistical issues that we would have to address when we roll out.
Meantime, health officials have reported some 24,000 plus cases, with roughly about 710 deaths since March of last year. I'm Laurencia Smith for JCN News.
Thanks, Laurencia. Recent trends in COVID-19 cases is confirmation enough that Omicron has already hit our shores. Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville contends as much, and this is despite the fact that the gene sequencing on samples sent abroad have not yet confirmed the presence of the Omicron variant in the Bahamas. Dr. Darville further deems New Providence to be the epicenter of the new variant. Since this past Saturday, New Providence alone has recorded over 450 new COVID-19 cases, with a whopping 320 being recorded on Christmas Day alone. As the trend of cases spiking continue, Dr. Darville did share some good news for the frontline healthcare workers who are set to receive a boost in manpower.
In recent weeks, a fourth wave has emerged as there has been sharp surges of COVID-19 infections throughout Europe, the United Kingdom, North America, due to the Omicron variant. In the past weeks, we have also seen strong surges in cases here at home, which would indicate that this new variant has hit our shores. We have sent samples abroad for testing to determine conclusively if this is the case. But given the epidemiological trends, we believe that these tests will confirm the presence of the Omicron variant in country.
Minister Darville continues to emphasize that the COVID-19 pandemic, that is far from over, and the Davis administration will continue to make timely and essential adjustments to the health service rules to ensure that public safety is a priority. He also notes that by way of the health services rules, They have tightened testing at the country's borders to reduce the importation of new cases, while also refusing to give approvals to mass gatherings throughout the country that can easily become super spreader events as COVID-19 cases continue to rise.
I am pleased to confirm that next week we will bring on board 12 additional doctors. We are also in the final stages of recruitment exercise to add an additional 50 specialty nurses to our healthcare system to provide essential services, and we pray that the contracts will be finalized by next week. Our nurses and doctors have gone beyond the call of duty despite outstanding industrial agreements. I have spoken with the Honorable Prime Minister and these outstanding matters, and I assure all involved that the negotiations will begin early next year to finalize these matters and begin the long-awaited promotion exercise across the board at the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
The United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommendations for quarantine will not apply to the Bahamas off the heels of the CDC on Monday shortening the recommended time that people should isolate when they have tested positive for COVID-19 from 10 days to 5 days. Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Philip Swan indicates that this will not apply to the Bahamas.
There have been a number of questions on what is the accepted practice for quarantine and isolation in country. The Bahamas has not adjusted its definition and practices for quarantine and isolation as yet. The CDC recommendations are just that, recommendations, and they are geared towards the U.S. experience. Even in their recommendations, individual states and sometimes counties have the ability to adjust, adapt, or adopt the recommendations. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is cognizant of the recommendations and have committed to considering the relevance or appropriateness of those to the Bahamian context in the coming days.
The CDC also shortened the recommended time for people to quarantine if they are exposed to the virus to 5 days if they are vaccinated. People who are fully vaccinated and have received a booster shot may not need to quarantine at all, the CDC says. Here's Dr. Swan on isolation requirements.
Isolation means that each person that tests positive for COVID-19 is to remain separate from others as far as possible until a minimum of 10 days or 3 days after symptoms resolve, whichever is longer. A person under quarantine is an individual that has been in the presence of another individual, symptomatic or not, that has subsequently tested positive for COVID-19. That's the individual whose presence they were in. The present requirement is for that individual who was exposed to the positive patient will remain separate from others or gatherings as far as is possible for a period of 14 days.
Dr. Swan notes that they are reviewing quarantine and isolation requirements for healthcare workers, and they will be shared with the relevant authorities before being made public. In crime news, crimes against the person decreased by 24% and crimes against property decreased by 4%. This compared to how the figures stacked up this same time last year. This much coming from Police Commissioner Paul Roll this morning at the Office of the Prime Minister. He adds, however, that year to date, crimes against the person increased overall by 19% compared to last year's figures.
We have investigated 119 incidents of homicides thus far in 2021, compared to 68 in 2020. There were 103 murders in New Providence, 13 in Grand Bahama, and 3 in the Family Islands. For the month of December 2021, we recorded 12 homicides. Fatal gunshots remain the leading cause of death.
Commissioner Roll adds that 4 sexual offense matters were recorded recently. This includes 2 incidents of incest, 1 indecent assault, and 1 rape. These were all against women here in New Providence.
In the rape matter, a 29-year-old woman was walking in the area of Carmichael Primary when she was attacked and sexually assaulted. I cannot express enough to encourage young women and all alike not to walk in dark areas alone. This occurred around 5 a.m. in the morning. The reality is that no one is safe to do so, regardless of your place.
Police also recorded some 34 armed robbery incidents throughout the Bahamas this month. The majority, according to the commissioner, occurred in or around residences or around business establishments. That said, he encourages the public to be aware of their surroundings to protect themselves from individuals wishing to have ill intent. Commissioner Roll also touched on an uptick in the transport of illegal drugs.
We recovered 3,154 pounds of cocaine during the month of December alone.
8 illegal firearms were also removed from the streets this month. 7 people were charged for possession of firearms, and overall, the commissioner says police have discovered 276 firearms for the year and 3,354 rounds of assorted ammunition. That said, the exportation of those firearms continues to be a concern for police. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.